other items to take care of. So the order would be, we're going to deal with the revenue neutral rate hearing, followed by the budget hearing and approval of 24-25 district budget, followed by the public comment and approval of the resolution to close Lincoln Elementary, and then we will go into our regular normal business. Okay? The first hearing is the published revenue neutral rate was reviewed and discussed at the July 15th Board of Education meeting, and the budget was published and reviewed at the Board of Education retreat on August 5th. Tonight we have two final steps to wrap up the 24-25 formal budget process to meet the September 20 deadline. The first is the hearing to exceed the revenue neutral rate. The notice and details were published in the Hayes Daily News on August the 14th, and the county mailed notification to taxpayers. Okay. At this time, we're going to open the hearing for the purpose of hearing patron comments related to exceeding the revenue neutral tax rate for the 24-25 school year.
Good evening. I'm John Pyle. On the revenue neutral, I know some of you received an email from a friend of mine, and it explained quite a bit about the revenue neutral proposals. And I'm here to ask you to really seriously consider maintaining a revenue neutral mill levy for this, and you're going to be voting on that. To let you know some things here, in 2020, my property tax was $3,924. In 2023, my tax went up to $5,494. And according to the paper that we just received from Mr. Reuter, my maximum tax in 24 can go to $57.24. That's quite an increase in 4 years. Some numbers that I pulled off going down to the county treasurer's office was in 2022, the total tax valuation in Ellis County was $458,724,000. The ad valorem tax collected that year was $52,070,000. In 2023, the total tax value was $513,299,000, and the ad valorem tax on that was $57,237,000. Between 22 and 23, the county took in an additional $5,160,000 just in ad valorem taxes. Since USD 489 gets at least 43% of the county tax revenue income, it means the USD benefited an additional $2,218,000. That's a nice raise. I didn't get that kind of raise in my household income. I've got a question for you all. As a board, when you have your work things, have you ever discussed a way to reduce expenses? Is that something that's even ever brought up? Or are you like most taxing entities that I've dealt with in the past for 10 years? I sold office equipment, office supplies, and office machines to counties, extension offices, school districts, many, many different departments that were funded with tax dollars. And the deal was that you'd wait to the end of the budget year, you'd go to those entities and ask, do you have money left in your budget? Yeah. Well, do you need new typewriters, new copy machines? What do you need? And they would proceed to zero out their budget. As taxing entities, there's no incentive to reduce expenses. Taxing entities live off of the revenue generated by property taxes and other means. So they get a raise each year. Like the district got that additional $2,218,000 between 22 and 23. So my question is, do you ever discuss reducing expenses? Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Then I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution as presented. After we have a motion and a second, then we can have discussion if you so desire. This will require a roll call vote.
I make the motion to approve it presented.
I second.
Okay. The motion is, so it's stated, motion to approve a resolution expressing the property taxation policy of USD 49 Hayes with respect to exceeding the revenue neutral tax rate for financing the annual budget for 2024-25. KSA 79-2988 provides that a levy of property taxes to finance the 2024-2025 budget of the USD 49 exceed the revenue neutral tax rate to finance the 2024-25 budget of USD 49 be authorized by a resolution. Now, therefore, it will be resolved by US 49 that the 2024-25 budget with a levy of property taxes exceed the revenue neutral tax rates calculated for 2024-2025 as suggested pursuant to KSA 79-2988 is hereby adopted. So I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion amongst the board?
Well, I personally think that we should stay revenue neutral, so, I mean, I will not be supporting increasing taxation, especially since I see that, to your point, we are not trying to make cuts. We're not trying to be good stewards of the money, so therefore I don't think we deserve more of it.
I do want to address something that I don't necessarily agree with. First of all, I understand that there are a lot of people in this community on a very fixed income. I myself am on a fixed income. I mean, that's what happens when I have a job. I get a check and it doesn't really ever raise. This mill levy to me is not a raise. This increase in the county taxes that comes to the district to me is not a raise because it's not going into the teachers' pockets. It's not going into the administrators' pockets. It's going into the classrooms. Now, I can only speak for what I have experienced firsthand. I was in a math classroom, and math classrooms need calculators. And I don't know if you guys have been to Walmart lately, those calculators are not cheap. Now, here's something that I face. We do ask our students, if possible, if they can buy a calculator, but to ask all of those students to buy a calculator is unattainable. They're over $100, $150, pushing $200. That's a lot of money. And to buy a classroom set so that there is not a student without, that's times 30. And then there's 7 math classrooms. So when it comes to budget, personally, I don't agree with the quote of zeroing out the budget because we have had those discussions about, do we save this money so we can buy more calculators next year for our students? Or do we spend the money now so we can get notebooks for our students to use? Or do we spend the money now so we can get a replacement for, this tool that we use a lot? Can we get a set of 3-dimensional shapes for our kids to work with? And yes, teachers should be looking at the cheapest options, and I can assure you that they do. I have spent hours poring over Amazon and these catalogs that you get and going to Walmart to see if I can get the best deal, because I really have. I have done my best to reach out and even get calculators provided for free and extra materials provided for free, and I have decorated my classroom out of my own pocket, and I've bought food for my students out of my own pocket because we didn't have the money in the budget to pay for a pizza party, but dang it, you guys did so good on that test, you deserve it. So I understand what you're saying. And there are places, I believe, in the budget that we can look at reducing expenses. But I do think we need to be very careful when we talk about it, because I do not want one student to feel like it is too expensive to bring them an education. So, I mean, I could go on about this for hours. I do understand where you're coming from. I do. But I do not see it as a raise. I see it as keeping up with the needs that our students need for their education. Probably.
So in July of '24, Governor Kelly passed a residential property exempted from statewide school finance levy to $75,000 of the appraised value. Currently, the exemption at that time was $42,000. She raised it to $75,000, given a tax break to Kansas citizens. So that money is exempted to schools, to education. So $75,000 of the property evaluation. So if you have a $75,000 home that's appraised at, and that's what you pay taxes on, that's exempt from property value. So that's a $33,000 difference that education does not receive. Does not receive. It's exempted. Went from 42 to 75. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is Kansas spends more than $500 million annually in federal, state, local funding on special education services in public schools, but hasn't complied with 92% of the requirements since 2011. So it's not necessarily here, but we need to be pushing for lower taxes and to get the money that education deserves. The statute that was implemented back in the 70s, I believe, the statute didn't include enforcement mechanisms to compel the legislator to meet this obligation. Okay? So we're not fighting hard enough for our own kids in the special education system, where we deserve those funds in our system, to reduce the funding that we have to allocate aside. We're required by law for special education, required by law to fund that program. So where do we get it from? If the state isn't going to help us fund it, and our legislation isn't going to help us fund it, we have to get it from somewhere. We're required to have it. So when you look at these different instances, the governor gave you a break on your taxes. I pay taxes too, gang. I pay taxes too. Do I agree with my property value at all times? No. What the citizens of Ellis County need to see is when my neighbor's house appraises at $500,000 and he sold it for $1 million, that's on my neighbor. That evaluation that is based on the values that were sold in the community, right? I want my house when I'm selling it to sell for $1 million because I'm selling it. But when I want to pay taxes, I want it to appraise for $250,000, right? We're all on the same page. I would have to, I can't think of anybody who wouldn't want that. But remember, those values are based off of the selling of those homes in our area. Now, supply and demand, right? We don't have enough housing to take up the cost of the people that come into our community. The school, with the new proposal of everything going on in our school district, the new high school, everything, we want that proposal to bring in more people for more jobs, better education, better for our community, right? I can say we're probably all in agreement with that. So what that does is we need more housing. What brings down the cost of your home? More housing. Brings your cost down. So we have to be in favor of the city, the county, and everything of wanting to expand our city. And the school growth is a good part of that. It's a good part of that we can bring more people in here. Kansas City's in the same thing. People say it's cheaper to live in Kansas City. No, it's not. It's because their supply and demand isn't there. More people keep moving in, which makes the cost of housing go up, right? It's just simple economics. When we keep getting reduced in education, and I don't think we emphasize that enough in education. Education, people, yes, most money goes to it. I agree. I see it. But the funding of it also reduces when you look at the state level. So we have to hold the people responsible of getting the funds that we deserve in education to get to us in education. So I'm going to fight like hell my next 3 years while I'm here to get to legislation, to get our 92% requirement that we are entitled to in our school district and our school system. I will fight for this community to get that, to get somebody to enact it, whether it's at state board level or we have to go to legislation. I will go to, I'm already scheduled to go to Washington, D.C. To talk about this. Because it's not just, it is local, it's because this is where we are. But we're punishing the kids because we're not fighting hard enough as citizens at the state level as well. Thank you.
Anybody else?
And I agree, there's a lot of things that we could do. We could advocate for more support, but we could also do some more here locally in our budget, and we don't have enough input to do that. I would hope we could do that. You mentioned about we need the funding to go to the classroom. Well, in the 2019-2020 budget, 62% of our budget went to instruction. Now it's at 52%. So where's the other amount? What can we do? Let me finish.
Well, please let him finish.
The other thing is capital outlay. We've got all these capital improvements. We've got the bond. We have all these things taken care of. That is one area that we could show to our community that we could cut back on. We don't have to take the full amount on that, but we did. We had another increase. We had a big increase last year. We have an increase this year. So that went from $471,000, 643, to $4,322,000 that we're still. So we're spending. We're talking. A gentleman came and talked to us about spending. Are we cutting our spending when we have all these capital improvements? We've been just grabbing as much money as we can, and it looks like we're spending it as fast as we can get it. And maybe we need to look at some of those things and have more discussion on how to be more efficient and save some of that money, because that's a huge increase just in that line item. So, and of course, there's a lot of different things that could be in there, but there's not supposed to be salaries in there. So that's just what we're spending to improve. And we redid the baseball field. We had a really nice baseball field. We redid it. We're remodeling Roosevelt's office, and we just remodeled it. We're building a whole new one. We just remodeled it a couple years ago. So maybe we should have been planning a little bit better in what we're doing. We've got a bus barn that's clear away from our two schools that need it, have the most of the activities come out of it's going to be down there, but we're improving our bus barn downtown, and they're driving back and forth. That's wasting money. We ought to be able to figure out a better way to save the time that they drive plus the mileage that they drive. So there are some things that we can do to improve and help locally. A lot of those things that you were mentioning, they're out there. We can help by calling, but this is where we can do a lot of impact and trying to pay that bond off as fast as we can instead of interest payments or the minimum. And that would show our community that we're being responsible and doing what we say that we were going to do when we got elected.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. In 2019, 2020, isn't that we made a huge shift away from, what was like 10% away from education in the classroom? I'm pretty sure that went to maintenance and repairs because the community was upset that we were not maintaining our buildings. And so we took the money away from the classrooms and we put it towards trying to upkeep the buildings and with our 5-year capital outlay plan, which again was super needed. I mean, my classroom was 85 degrees with 30 grown adults in there, basically. It was bad. And so, yeah, we did take money away from that, but it still went back into the learning of the kids, because you can't learn in the classroom if it's 85 degrees. Now, I agree, like, we did remodel, and then we remodeled again. We didn't know if the bond was going to pass. We were trying to help the teachers and the students in any way we could before we were guaranteed additional funds. Now, the bus barn, I don't know. I have no knowledge of that whatsoever. I can't speak on that. But I do know that when the community comes forward and says, hey, aren't you going to take care of the buildings that we provided you? They did make a shift, and that money did transfer for a reason. So I don't think that's necessarily wasted. I think that was being good stewards of what we had at the time.
I have a question for Chris, I think. The bond repayment, how much control over that line item do we have? Zero, right?
We had the over the mill levy in that.
I mean,
there.
the amount there that we have to generate in order to repay per our schedule,
So the amortization schedule is set.
It's set.
So, yeah, so
There's
we
no
have
wiggle room, there's
we have
nothing.
there's no variation in that. We know exactly what the payments are. So the mill levy is worked backwards based on the sales tax revenue and then the cash
Mm-hmm.
balance that you have to make the payments.
the reason I'm asking is that that does appear to be the largest, when I'm looking at my tax statement, my neutral disbursement, whatever this is called. This has a title, I should just read it, the title. What's it called?
Revenue neutral rate.
The proposed property tax increase revenue, the notice, right? That's where the largest increase is occurring. And that,
Over time, yeah, because
Over
that didn't
time.
exist until.
because it didn't exist until a few years ago. So we did have a big jump from year to year a couple of years ago that's valid. We also voted on that particular item specifically with as much information in the public as we could possibly put out there, and it passed. I know that is, I mean, a lot of people were concerned with how much that was, and there were things that we did to reduce that burden by placing the half-cent sales tax on, which has also now been neutralized because of the gross rate tax reduction statewide. So I come from a very, very poor place. So when I get my tax statements, I feel privileged that I have property. I feel blessed and grateful that I live in a community that wants to do the same thing for every kid that graduates from our school. And I know what a privilege it is to sit and say, $50 increase, $50, I can handle it. We're going to be okay. I get it. I can hold space for those conflicting views. And I support this budget. I know that we have been responsible. I know that to continue to be responsible, we need to make sure that we are keeping our teachers here and keeping our buildings in the right condition, and that we are allocating the resources to our kids that they're going to need. And as the district grows, the number of kids grow, and the number of people needed to staff those spaces grows. That is the benefit of living in a community that is prospering. And I am also very glad for that.
I would also like to emphasize that insurance costs went up. Anybody's insurance who went down, I want to know where you shop. Second of all, and Chris, can you reiterate on insurance costs of the buildings, of how much of an increase insurance went up for us this year?
So premium, if you're looking back from 19 to now, I think we were at about a 22% increase last year. This year, we were able to stay flat on the premium, but our deductibles have gone up. We doubled our deductible, which later on we'll be talking about an insurance claim that deductible would be $50,000 on this year, where a year ago it would have been $25,000.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Ken, you working in the insurance industry. You had mentioned at our last retreat that some insurance companies aren't even insuring public buildings and things like that. Is that correct?
Right. They're canceling them, finding reasons to cancel because they don't want on them anymore.
So again, what makes your premiums go up? What makes you go? Because we file claims. That's what makes it go up. So we're paying for the hurricane in Florida because we filed claims. How many of you filed a claim this year? Hail, more than once, right? Makes your insurance costs go up. So those things are items that we have to pay for, correct? And we don't have a choice, right? As far as inflation, can't stop inflation. It is what it is. Paper costs was the one that really stood out to me, Chris, when you showed that to us at our last retreat. With a pallet of paper, the increase it costs. Have to have paper, right? I mean, I looked through this budget over and over and over and over and over. And everything that I looked at, I couldn't find anything where we could really cut. The budget is what it is. It's set, it's done. We have to move on and find those cuts moving forward. Am I understanding that properly? Please tell me if I'm not.
I would agree with that. Yeah, this budget is set to fund this year, but that's based on negotiations and planning and all of that happened over the last 8 to 12 months. Yes.
Okay, because the things I voted on so far being in the school board was I voted for the bus, which we got a discount on because we were fortunate to get that. Voted on the salaries, we negotiated those salaries. We sat in that meeting for a long time negotiating it, so we had great conversation. We reduced that from what was presented to us. So those are the two major items that we looked at. As far as the bond, can't change the bond. Can't change the bond. The voters voted for that. So those buildings, the structure of developing space, that's what taxpayers voted on. It passed. Whether you like it or not, it passed. So,
Thank you. You got anything, Ken?
No.
Okay.
For us taking a vote.
I am ready to call for the vote. It will be a roll call vote, just if you call their names, and then we'll know how it proceeds.
Alan Clark, how do you vote?
No.
Bert Reiner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ken Brooks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Megan Sampieri Littleproud, how do you vote?
Yes.
Smith, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bruce Rieger, how do you vote?
yes.
Eric Jarman, how do you vote?
No.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. Motion passes. Second on our action items is the final step in the formal budgeting process is the budget hearing. The notice and details were published in the Hayes Daily News on August 14th. In addition, all budget information is available on the district website. And there's 3 reading buying notebooks, correct? And I think there was a few there as we walked in. So at this time, we'll open the hearing for the purpose of hearing patrons' comments relating to exceeding the 2024-2025 district budget.
My name's Ken Kennedy. I live at 4500 Danby here in Hayes, Kansas, and I spoke with you last year about the budget, and I appreciate the opportunity to be heard at the budget hearing this year again. And I want to say that I'm not here with lots of facts and figures this time. I want to talk to you more in general about the budget and about the budgeting process, if you will, and I do again appreciate it. First of all, I trust that the board looked at the budget hard. I trust that Superintendent Wilson and Assistant Superintendent Hipp did your best to get the budget established, balanced, and figured out. That's just characteristic of boards. But there are things that concern me, and that's what I'm going to share. And I hope you understand, I'm not here representing myself so much personally as I am trying to represent the taxpayers of our community. That's my goal in this. And we'll have differences in our opinion about taxes. We'll have differences in our opinion about the budgeting process. But my goal is to share with you at least my side as far as what I think is happening with our taxes, not only resulting from the school district, of course, but resulting from other entities, the county and the city. And I will be going to present to them as well. So I just think that it's important you understand that. But to share a little bit of what the presenter before me shared, the assessed valuation in our district, we moved here in 19. Our first assessed valuation on our home would have been 20. So the full assessed valuation on our home was at 20. So from 20 to 24, that's 5 years, the assessed valuations went up 30%. That's huge. That's 6% a year. That's significant. And that, when you talk about assessed valuation, that's directly talking about taxes, because every time the assessed valuation goes up, so do your taxes, even as the mill levy stayed flat. Your taxes have went, assuming the mill levy stayed flat, city, county, and school district, and the other smaller entities, we would have still saw a 30% tax increase as a result of that. That's significant. And it's incumbent upon all the taxing entities to do what they can to lighten that load on taxpayers, in my opinion. Secondly, the taxes have went up about, and I'm speaking, I used my home as the example, but I did call the county and say, is mine sort of representative of what you might see in other homes in the community? And the answer is yes, as far as the assessed valuation. Then on top of that, the taxes alone have went up 40% in 5 years. 40% in 5 years is 8% a year. Now, largely, some of that is because of the bond issue. And I'm not going to stand here and say I oppose the bond issue because I voted for it. But the bond issue had an impact on that, and we voted that in, and we expect to pay that. I agree with that. But there are some things that I have some suggestions, maybe would be a better way to put it. And one would be, your LOB went up 1.4 mils this year. I know you had less state aid in the LOB, but it went up 1.4 mils. It doesn't need to. If maybe you consider some things like investments, interest on idle funds. Interest on idle funds last year for most taxing entities was significantly greater than the previous year because interest rates went up. Now, I don't know about the district, and I didn't pursue that. That may not be true here. But it is one area where you had more revenue coming in than would have been anticipated because of interest on idle funds. So you could have looked at that and said, maybe we don't need to raise the LOB quite that much. The other area, and was mentioned by the board, is that capital outlay, some districts have done this when they pass a significant bond issue that addresses maintenance, because your capital outlay does two things. It primarily addresses maintenance, and secondly addresses additions that you need from growth, those type of things, or changes in curriculum structure, those kind of things. It addresses those. But with a bond issue, you address those things hopefully for a few years. And when you do that, some districts have chosen to reduce the mill levy and the capital outlay slightly. Maybe, certainly don't zero it out, but reduce it slightly because you don't have those ongoing expenses such as roofs, air conditioning, and so forth that are expensive items year to year. So that's an area you can look at to help maybe reduce the burden on taxpayers slightly. I mean, I'm just suggesting. Now, also I'm going to say, I know it's late in the year. If I really wanted to make an impact, I would have came in March, and when you're working on your budget. But some of the things I'm saying, I hope you will consider too for next year when you're looking at your budget. Then, in addition to that, other items, and some of you mentioned this, if we think about taxes, if you think about the tax impact on people, these are some of the taxes that just came to mind. First of all, we pay about 10% sales tax. It's not quite that much, but it's getting close. 10% sales tax. We have motor vehicle tax. First of all, we pay our income taxes if we have any income, and that can be anywhere from 15 to 30%, both federal and state. So you lose that part of your income before you even get to pay the other taxes. Then you have mineral taxes. If in our county there's a lot of mineral wealth, so there are some mineral taxes involved. And I looked at my gas and utility tax bills, and it's got taxes on there. I don't even know what they're for. They're not much, but they're there. Then you have cell and internet taxes for your cell phone, special taxes and surcharges, capital gains tax. You have that if you have any money that's growing. And then on top of that, and some of you mentioned this, is that health, home, and auto insurance takes a significant part of a budget anymore, especially health insurance for those that don't have work-provided health insurance. So in summary of that, it's taxes likely in our area are going up much faster than most people's wages. And that's where it becomes a problem. When your taxes go up faster than wages, it creates a real problem for families. So for example, I read the other day, I didn't validate this, but I did read the other day, one source said that 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, if that's true, and your wages don't go up, a mill or two is significant to them. You know, maybe not so much to me, but to many, that's significant. So if you can find any ways to soften the tax load a piece at a time in every taxing entity, it's helpful to people. And then I just stood behind a senior the other day that was getting some RX medications, and they said that'd be $400 and some. And I thought, wow, you know, I don't know what it was for, don't care. The point is, many seniors have tremendous expenses with health care and with insurance costs, and many are on fixed incomes. So tax increases are significantly impactful to them. There's three parts to effective budgeting, and I think I mentioned this last year. There's adequacy, equity, and efficiency. Adequacy is a thing that Board Member Reuter just talked about, working with the state, working with the federal government, looking at special education funding, those kind of things. Those are things that your team, I know, your administrative team does all the time, likely, really works hard for adequate funding, both from the state and other entities. The equity piece, I think by and large, I believe that most school districts use their funds equitable. I don't think they prefer one student to say, you're getting more money than this student, unless there's some demonstrated educational need for that. So I think school districts handle equity fairly well. I think the city handles it well. I think the county handles it well. I think the state doesn't handle it quite as well, and I think the federal government doesn't handle it well at all. That's my opinion. I think that is an issue, and that's something that you have to continually work with, and it's not something we have so much control of at this level. You don't. But the last one is efficiency. So you've got adequacy, equity, and efficiency. If you take a three-legged stool, and those being the three legs of the stool, if any one of those isn't right, the stool won't set straight. It just won't. And efficiency is the one that rarely gets much attention. It's the most difficult to deal with. It's the one that gets the least attention typically, and it's the hardest one to implement, because where do you start savings? Where do you cut? And, staff, wages are important, facilities are important, student activities are important, all of them are important. So it's the hardest one to deal with, but it's the one you all should deal with. It's really the one you should deal with. It's the one that can help balance the taxes people pay and meeting the needs of the school district. That's where it all is impacted. So, and I want to sort of wind down now. Let me reach my 3 minutes, bring the hook out if that happens.
There's not a time limit, I'm sorry.
Have I mean?
Do you need a time limit?
I promise. The easiest money to spend is other people's money. And so when you sit there in those chairs, it's hard to think I'm spending district money. That's not true. You're spending taxpayers' money. In every case, you're spending taxpayers' money. So always remember that. I'm going to give you a quick story. I was at a team meeting once, and we had $300,000 of federal grant left. $300,000. The needs of the grant had been met. We didn't really have a use for it, so the director came in and said, we need to figure out a way to spend this $300,000. And I said, let's just, it was a federal grant, I said, let's just send it back. I about passed out from the lack of oxygen in the room. Everybody went, what? I mean, the gas were, so it's hard to be efficient at times. It really is. And that was taxpayers' money. So, in summary, I want to say, as you move ahead in your budgeting process, both this year and next year, please look at how can you reduce the tax burden on the city of Hayes, reduce the tax burden on the county residents that are in your district and the city of Hayes residents that are in your district. How can you do that? How can you reduce the tax burden? And even yet this year, can you do that? And then how can you return some revenue to the taxpayers? Is that possible? How do you do that? And maybe that's by at the end of the year, you look at what you have and you say, we're going to move that money forward to next year if you can, and some you can, some you can't. We're going to move it forward to next year, and we won't levy quite as much. So, in summary, I was going to recommend that you have, schools have all kinds of departments. They have a department for this, a department for that, a department for this. And I've been in a couple districts. Guess what department we never had? We never had a department of efficiency, not one. And so, and I'm not suggesting that you need one, but I'm saying that's not all bad. So, please look at efficiency as one of the areas you address. And then as I was coming down here, and in my last sermon, when I was coming down here, I thought of a good idea. Now you can all laugh at this one because I'm just being a little facetious here. Is every other year we could let the administrative team do the budget, and then on the opposite year you could let me and some taxpayers do your budget for you. And then you could compare those and see which one you like. I'm just kidding. But the point is, there are differences in opinion of how you use your money, but please be efficient and then work towards adequacy. That's important. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Okay. At this time, I'd ask a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
I make a motion to approve the district budget as published and presented.
Second? Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we shall, yes?
One of the things that I'm concerned about, and it's hard for me to support this budget, is that when I went to the KSB budget workshop, and I've attended several of those different meetings, and each time they say the board needs to be involved. And they start in December, and they look at the budget, and they look at all the schools, and they look at the needs assessment. And it's a state law that we look at our needs assessment. Getting the budget in August and getting the needs assessment in August is too late. We should be looking at that earlier. We should be involved. We should have a meeting and discuss and say, yes, we want to do the new revenue neutral rate before we turned it in. We did it after we turned it into the county. Board did not decide that and made that decision. It was an administrative decision, and I think we should be involved in that. The budget is on one of our lane. That's our lane. Supervision, evaluate the superintendent. Budget is our role, and we don't spend enough time with it. We got this, a couple weeks ago, and we had a lot of questions, and you had to go in and sort through it. And the comparison is looking, there's things that we can do better. And I think our role needs to be more involved. And for that reasons, I will vote no on the budget.
I agree with you 100% that we need to be more involved. So Alan, this is my first year on the board. It's public record of everything that's spent. It's public record of everything that's out there. So most of it, is like any budget. You have your capital outlay, your funds, your expenses, what's your biggest expenses, employees, correct? There's certain things when you look at it that I have, like I said, I've looked at it, and I've looked at it, and I've looked at it. I'm in finance. I see a repossessed car every day. I see all of the things that come into play with not having funds, trying to cut funds, and again, when I looked at this and looked at the mill levy and everything, and I visited with Chris, so when I have questions, I feel like I can go to them. I don't necessarily need to get you involved. First of all, we can't all email each other. That's against policy.
Public law.
Yeah, public law.
Open meetings.
I email Chris, and I always include Ron, and I ask my questions. I contacted Chris this morning in the questions that I had. And when we looked at it, the average median household was $222,000 in Hayes for 2024. With the mill levy, that increases your property tax about $19.72 a year. Am I correct, Chris? So those are the things we need to say, yes, you think $19.72 may not be a lot to me, but it may be to somebody else. I agree 100%. But as far as looking at everything that we've had in the budget and we've looked at, the budget is what it is. Can we look further? Yes, Alan, I do think we can look further. What can we look at cutting? But then you get into that heart of, this isn't important to me, but it's important to him, and it's important to him, and it's important. It's okay. It's not. Where do we draw the line of what's not important and what gets cut? Statistics show once you cut something, it rarely comes back. It rarely comes back. So we have to be real careful on what we cut as well, because again, our mission statement is for the kids. It's what's good for the kids. Yes, our obligation is to the taxpayer. I agree 100%. But the obligation is what is good for our kids and what is the needs of the kids and those teachers. When I went through everything, as far as all this goes to, all the expenditures, when you looked at like what teachers' needs were, and that's just what's required of curriculum. Then we hear test scores. Well, test scores are down. Well, if we don't provide the curriculum for the teachers to teach it, how do we impose test scores go up? So you look at that. Okay, do we need that? Do we need driver's education? You can look at all this. Yes, we do. So I asked Chris, what was the expense of that? Well, you know how dealers were a few years ago with cars. It's not just our entity, it's every entity. Cars were priced high, right? So your value of your car then is different than it is now. The district had to purchase a car for the kids to learn driver's education. I've investigated a lot of it. There's It's just not a lot when you look at it. I will be voting yes on the budget proposal tonight because everything I looked at doesn't change any cost of anything that we can really get rid of at this time because it's the cost of inflation from what I've looked at. Now, if you see something different, then please tell me. I'm so excited that I understand being new to this, of what I can come forward with, what I can question, and it's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to question those things. It's not the board's responsibility to question it for me. It's not the public's responsibility to question it for me. I ran for this position. It's my responsibility to do it.
I would add to that. I would say, and one of the things is, as you continue on the board, you see we vote on all of this all throughout the year. We're constantly voting for the budget, even though we're not voting for the budget directly until this meeting. We're constantly voting for all of these things throughout the year. And if you talk to any of our, you saw how easily accessible Chris is. He will go over anything that you have a question for. There's nothing being done in a manner that's not professional and not doing the best for our kids.
Okay, seeing no more discussion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor vote yes.
Yes.
All those opposed vote no.
No. No. Mr. Viner, should that be a roll call vote too?
No.
Does not have.
Nope, it doesn't.
It carries 5-2.
The motion passes 5-2. Okay, the third hearing deals with the motion to approve the USD 49 Board of Education intends to close Lincoln Elementary School as a school facility on May 23 of 25. So this is dealing with there will no longer be school going on. It does not deal with the sale, use, moving on of the building or facilities. This is in and only dealing with it will not be a school system next year as of May 23rd, 2025.
I make the motion.
Well, hold on. Anybody, is there anybody who wants to speak towards Lincoln? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make that motion to approve that the Hayes USD 49 Board of Education intends to close Lincoln Elementary School as a school facility on May 23rd, 2025.
Thank you. Second?
I second.
There is a second to the motion. Any discussion?
Mr. President?
Yes, Alan?
The thing that's scary, it comes to being involved in this decision and getting more information. We've not looked at the data. We've looked at, we're supposed to be data-driven and see what's the comparisons of small schools and large schools. I'm an advocate of smaller schools. Data shows that kids are better. We're talking about a group of kids that are at that school that it's going to be difficult for them in a large school. We're changing our community, and I wish we had more input and people know that this is what we're changing their community and their neighborhood. We're closing another neighborhood school. Just on the news tonight, they're at Valley Center are really working hard to try to save their neighborhood schools because they see it's real important for their community. And as far as the data to look at and see, what does the parents think? You know, what does the community think about neighborhood schools? We haven't looked at it. So I understand that we've got a bond and it's great, and I understand we added more classrooms onto Roosevelt. And so we have a school now that can hold 700 kids. And I understand that I also see the value in the parents have a choice between the large and small. So now we're removing that choice, and we're So now they can choose to go to a neighbor school in a neighborhood community, in our county, if they want a smaller school, not standard district. And that is exactly what happened when we closed the other school. There was a number of kids, not a huge number, a few kids that chose to go to Victoria and Ellis because it just didn't want because they knew their child would get lost. And I had many parents that said that I do not care about brick and mortar, but I do care that the staff knows my child, and that is more difficult when you make it so big. And so that's why I'm an advocate of this type of what we're doing here.
So Alan, my question to you is, so you are not for the closing of Lincoln Elementary?
I'm not for the process that we use to close the school when we haven't researched what else we could do. Could we do a magnet school? Could we do an opportunity to have a music magnet or a science magnet or a math magnet, something that is smaller and could still house kids who need it? We've closed or we've reassigned West Side, so I'm worried about those kids. I'm worried about the kids that are going to get lost in a large school.
So we just talked about tax entity, so they're if you keep that school, you're talking teachers that we were already going to move. There you have to hire more teachers. Am I to understand this correctly? You have to pay the utilities, you have to pay the taxes, you have to pay the insurance. So everything that we just talked about would be keeping Lincoln open to cost taxpayers more money. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, but you don't have the data to see what it costs.
But the data should have been done before, the bond. So it should have been done with the last board when it was talked about.
The role wasn't talking about closing the school because we can get them on. It was decided that. So fine, show me where the board decided the minutes that we are closing Lincoln.
Right,
We never
but
did.
I wasn't part of that board.
Well, never happened.
So
It was always that
moving forward, it's not feasible
You're right.
to do.
It's just,
It's not. So
it's a
that's where we have to
concern.
learn moving forward what is right. Keeping Lincoln open, I never was to understand was part of the plan. Never was to understand that.
I thought the understanding was that the amount of money that would be needed to fix Lincoln was more than it would cost to build a new school, which was even more than I don't think the closing of the school was because we were able to open a new elementary school that could house 700 children. I don't think that was the push. I think the understanding was that building, it's the 100-year anniversary. And I attended there when it was the 75th anniversary. I'm sure if you go to my parents' house, you can find the commemorative t-shirt because it's 75 years. And I still remember the song we had to sing to all of the older people that attended when it was, 25 years old. But it was in a great state of disrepair. And I thought the understanding was we could not afford to repair it. I thought the cost was astronomical.
We're going to be talking about adding $15 million to O'Laughlin. And I guarantee you, take a couple million on Lincoln, and you have a wonderful school. Just look at other buildings that have been renovated.
I think it was more than a couple million. I don't.
that figure guarantee.
I think it was
There's
a
no guarantee.
complete
I'm just saying,
restructuring of
it's
the
a
plumbing.
discussion we did not have.
I will tell you this. Anybody who is concerned about sending their kid to a larger elementary school, my daughter goes to one of the largest elementary school in town. And every single morning when I drop her off, she gives at least 3 teachers hugs. I think they all know her name, which is such a good feeling. There are a lot of kids, but those teachers work so hard. And they know her when they see her at Walmart. They know her in the morning. She is not lost. They do a good job. And I hope nobody's concerned about that. But I am telling you that the understanding with the bond was that Lincoln was past the point of repair, which is sad. It was a great school, has been a great school. I don't think we can afford to keep it open.
So my next question would be Washington. We lived through Washington School. It closed. It's now apartments. It's revenue, right? That person pays taxes on that building, which benefits the school district. Those renters pay tax dollars into our community, which benefits the district, right? So we already went through Washington. So I guess I'm confused as to why now all of a sudden we're talking about Lincoln, when I thought it was to close it all along. That's why part of why I voted for the bond was to sustain the new and increase the new and get rid of the old. I don't want to stay in this building either. Are we going to sustain and keep this one?
I also don't think it's like completely throwing that entire surrounding area into disarray as the nearest elementary schools to Lincoln. It's not like Spring Valley where it's like miles away, like the next elementary school is like 3 or 4 blocks away. Yes, I understand that it is tough. I did take that into account when I chose the elementary school that my kid would go to, because we literally she asked me today, why did I go here and not here? Well, because I didn't want you to have to switch schools when it closed. Like, that was part of my decision process, and I think several other people understood that as well. So it is sad, I agree, it is a great school, but I do think it's for the betterment of our students.
Chris, what is the appraised value on Lincoln? Do you know, county?
2.3 million, at least it was a few years ago.
So more than that now, because everybody's increased, so it should be, right? Okay.
Any other new discussion? Seeing no discussion, I shall call the vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Passes 6-1.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Okay. We'll now move into opening items, approval of the agenda. I will entertain a motion.
I would like to move to approve the agenda as presented, please.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded the approval agenda. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed? 7-0. I never got anything.
Alan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
It passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Approved 7-0. Next up, click as fast as I can click. The mission of USD 49 is to provide a quality learning experience for every student in every classroom every day. Consent agenda. Anything going to be pulled before we ask for the motion?
You want me to run?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am sorry. I did make a note of that, Mr. Wilson. I'm sorry. Mr. Wilson, can you please run through the consent agenda? My apologies.
On the agenda tonight is the board meeting minutes, the ECC records report, policy council minutes, HRC minutes, and agenda. You will see this is both the district obsolete property. This is all district property that we have deemed obsolete, don't need, and will be considered for auction. Of course, your financials, Chris, anything specific?
Just a couple of things, reminders, since we're new into the fiscal year. Investment income report that shows not only the investment earnings, but also the sales tax revenue that goes towards bond purchase funds that can only be used for payment of the bond. Along with that, I loaded just an update on a couple of insurance claims that we have going on. One, the May 24th hailstorm that went through, we had 22 vehicles in the bus barn that got, or at the bus barn that got damaged. We had, it was pre-July 1, so it was a $25,000 deductible, so we'll receive $122,000 up to $130,000 depending on how the repairs go, but we're authorized up to $130,000 on that to get all of them fixed. We also, it wasn't that hailstorm, but then later in June and July, we had some significant wind events. So we did have a claim. We're in the process of filing right now for at Hayes High. Section of the roof, and I outlined it in the handout, but the section of the roof over the office and then out towards like band rooms and towards the commons area lifted. It's an adhered roof and it's lifted up, so we'll in the process of filing a claim for that. We'll be able to replace that, or we'll have to replace that entire section there. We're going to have to work it backwards and figure out when the claim was, because if it was the June windstorm, that would be a $25,000 deductible, but if it's the July windstorm, it is a $50,000 deductible. I'll let you know how that goes. I think it was June. Yeah, they don't ask me to appraise it or to adjust it, but I think it was June. Anyway, we're working on that.
They'll let you know.
Yeah. Then, the only other one, and maybe you were going to talk about this too, Mr. Wilson, but the workers' compensation. So the board policy on workers' compensation is a legislative change that upped the unauthorized medical amount from 500 to 800. So the policy change just has to change to match new legislation.
Okay, quick question back on the cars.
Uh-huh.
Do we have any that were totaled?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so. I'll confirm that with Russ, but I don't believe so.
Okay.
And the only other thing is personnel, but there's no retirements.
Okay. The item that I talked to you about,
Yeah, that was pulled off.
is it removed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Park.
I'd like to pull up the 3.4.
3.4, disposal of district obsolete property. Is there a question you can ask that would speed it up, or you want it pulled? Okay.
I'd like to hear some discussion on that.
Okay. 3.4, disposal of district obsolete property. With that being removed, I'd entertain a motion to approve consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
With 3.4 removed?
3.4 removed.
Okay. Second? It has been properly moved and seconded to vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed?
No, probably needs a refresh.
I did.
Oh, yeah.
Alan. Oh, Megan.
No.
Alan, I think it was Alan.
It's not.
You can pick.
Didn't come up.
Felix?
No, we're talking about who seconded. Okay. If you refresh, then it popped up on mine. We good, Jess?
Yep.
7-0. Consent agenda approved 7-0. Next item is 4.1, public comment. Okay, seeing no public comment, I will not read public comment. District Communications Superintendent Report, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, the first thing I'd just like to share, just I want to get forward some enrollment numbers. Now remember, these are unaudited, meaning this is just preliminary. Our official count day is September 20th. So, and we have students coming and going. We'll have students coming and going all the way up until September 20th. So, and we'll see movement. So right now, as of, what was it, Friday, I think, maybe, this is the numbers that we have. You can see that we've had, you know, a little bit of growth, a slight, if you count, about 11 students up. That's what we have pretty much seen the last several years. We've never had huge growth in our numbers, but we continue to see, you know, trending upward, which is honestly really, you know, we used to stay flat. It's sometimes okay. The thing I will tell you is that we did have a big kindergarten class. That's always something that you look at after last year having a smaller kindergarten class. But we did see some growth in that. Our first grade actually grew quite a bit from last year. So I think that's good. One thing I also would highlight, if you look at our high school right now, we have some really large classes in our high school. Some of our biggest classes are in the high school right now. And so naturally, if we don't bring in kindergartners at the same level right now, it looks like we have 248 seniors. If we don't bring 248 kindergartners next year, we will see a little dip. It's not necessarily something that, you know, you're always, I mean, it doesn't mean that the sky is falling. I think that's what I'm getting across here is that we just have some really large classes that we have been able to go through many years now, but we'll start seeing some of those fall off. We don't bring the same number of students into the, you know, beginning grades. Still, we'll deal with that when we get there. So also just wanted to share with the board a little bit about the Fort Hays part-time career fair. We sent Chrissy Crowe to represent the district. just trying to find some of those part-time positions, some of the classroom aides, paraprofessionals, substitutes, lunchroom monitors, morning supervisors, part-time bus drivers. I don't know if we have actually, I think I heard that we had 12 applicants following the fair. Doesn't necessarily mean that we hired any or will hire any of them or all of them, but it's definitely something that we're continuing to do. It's part of our strategic plan to retain, and attract quality educators. Even those part-time people are what we consider our educators. So it's just something we're continuing to do. Also want to recognize some people who received some recognition. Jerry Brown received the 2025 Travelers Insurance Award for Teaching Excellence. Another award Jerry has done, just another reason why we are so lucky to have someone like Jerry in our district working with our kids. Tom Albers was notified that he is the Northwest Kansas Music Educators Association Outstanding Honor Administrator, so congratulations to Mr. Albers. I also included in your packet just the bus graphics so you can see a little of the logo and how we're out promoting our logo and promoting it to other communities. So I think that's positive. I really love that you've worked up so hard to come up with that logo, and also how hard we work to unify our community, our school spirit into one logo. And I also included for you just the slides of the back to school message. So that's all I have, unless I have questions.
I would add a couple of things. I'd say that back to school, you did a terrific job on that. And board members, if you didn't get to see it, he does a great, at the start of every year, he does great motivating the staff. And I know it's a group effort with the administration, and they make the staff want to be back and make them feel good to be there. So y'all did terrific with that. And then, man, I got to hand it to Jerry Brown and Tom Alberts. They're two of the best in the district, but it's hard to say because every one of our people are just so wonderful. So congratulations to them.
I want to hear Tom Albert sing. That wasn't. He didn't have to audition before he got there. Okay. Never heard him even hum, but okay.
So, Mr. Wilson, we just did Lincoln, the resolution. So another thing on the bond was Wilson. What's the schedule or what's the plan on Wilson and the resolution for Wilson?
Wilson, you mean Wilson Elementary?
Wilson Elementary.
Well, that will continue to be a school next year. And at the end of the 25-26, we'll have a similar resolution.
And do you have to have a opposite resolution to say that we're moving it over to? Is there a big announcement?
I'll ask. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
We're closing the attendance center and we're opening a new one at Felton Elementary.
I understand. Yeah, you're closing one, but you're open. You're just switching out. I didn't know if there's a legal thing that we had to go through. So, alrighty. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anything? Okay. All right. Action discussion items. 6.1 bond update. Nabholz. Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, since they were here tonight, I think that was asked if Nabholz could come, so we have got a group from Kansas City, so Brett Collins and Brett Stevens, the Bretts. The update today on the ball.
Yeah, so this is Brett Stevens. I'm Brett Collins, Nabholz. I'll probably have Dylan Little come up and talk here as soon as we got a little PowerPoint to show and kind of give an update.
It's behind you.
Oh, they're picking the wrong one? They need to pick one.
Do you see where it says Friday night BOE?
Yeah. That's the right thing.
So we need to hit the big boy button.
So we'll give an update both on Roosevelt, where it stands, the high school, where that's at in progress, and then also we'll be talking about Laughlin, where that's at in the process. So, what's that? Yep. So with Roosevelt, I'll have the other Brett here give a little progress update where we're at.
So right now, as soon as we get the screen for you, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. As you can see, we got the parking set up, so we've got the new bus lane in, we've got our civil work done on the outside, so we're grading this thing right here. We're still working on some seating and solid. Interior wise, as far as all the renovations go, we're going to do our 5 days inside, our starting pool, one of the faces inside. The addition side, we're actually working really well at. We're basically tracking about an 8 week at this time.
What was that again? I didn't hear that.
8 weeks until we're about complete, roughly. We'll get those out.
Brett Stevens, can you go over towards the microphone? That would help. Thank you.
Sorry
Thank you.
about that.
You're fine.
So as you can see right there, we've got the gymnasium on the right-hand side. So we're actually really happy. We don't have a picture of it, but we've actually got the Roadrunner painted in. So looks pretty cool. It would be on the opposing side of that there. That'll be where the bleachers end up going. Those will be coming in here roughly about a week and a half, I believe. We actually just got done with the main corridor area, so the entrance. So it's all natural stone in there. We've got the learning cave all set up. So it's actually turning out very, very well there at Roosevelt. Looks beautiful. There you go. We've still got the, so you can see the new sidewalks that we went ahead and put in there on the left picture. And then everybody knows that's the addition there. Then on the right, that's actually that corridor area coming in. So the big learning park. Like I said, it's very beautiful. Once we get the bookcases in, everything else, it'll really be finished out nicely.
The stone is finishing up on the other side. So.
Yes, we just got finished with that. They're finishing up pretty much today, actually. They got about probably a 10-foot by 5-foot area left to finish up, and that should be it.
That's just kind of showing the next 6 weeks or so where we're at, the expansion, and then the site work should be wrapping up here by the end of the month. We'll have a closeout phase at the end of that expansion, phase 5. So we do order training, punch list, and turn it over to the space. So it's going very, very well.
Okay. Gentlemen, can we field questions over Roosevelt so we're not jumping around? Anybody have any questions about Roosevelt?
I got one more slide.
Go ahead. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Everybody's interested in.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed since the last update. It's still holding with the current budget. You can see from the original to the current, we did have one addition there. That was 4 extra classrooms, which was done quite a while ago. So the budget right now is holding.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about Roosevelt?
You mentioned the sod and seeding, and are you putting in irrigation too?
We got temporary irrigation going in right
Just
now.
temporary.
Yeah, so the temporary irrigation is getting established. The requirement is for erosion control measures, you have to get it established before we can walk away and hand it off. So that's what that's in there for.
So there's not going to be a sprinkler system in there?
No.
Is that local or?
Yes, sprinklers.
Yeah, they were dragging pipe
Yep.
2 weeks ago everywhere.
Yeah, that's on today even.
The east parking lot that they were working on, is that getting close? The drive thing. I mean the loop.
The bus lane, yes, it's completed.
That's done.
Yeah. Right now, we're just trying to get everything finished up.
I better get back on that side of town again then.
It is so
Okay.
nice.
Well, yeah, they were still trying to get in there. The times I was going by there, but
I thought
Yeah, we got right before school, our hope was to get open
Yeah.
for school, but we got rain finally in Hastings, so it was
We'll
good to
ta-
see, but at that point in time, we could have used it earlier, but it should be open.
it's called an anomaly.
So nice that
Okay.
we see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to keep people off the grass, though.
I have a question, and this might be a very dumb question. It's been a long day.
Good.
The only increase I see is in the construction from 19.5 to 19.7, so it's about like $250,000. Why in the bond total did it go up about $1 million? No, that's still,
No, that's not.
I take that back.
And you're the
Stare me there
math.
for a second.
Okay, she is tired.
She's tired.
Listen, I take that back. I was just looking at the
That was a curveball
21,
question.
22. I'm so sorry. Good job, your math holds. So sorry.
Okay,
That furniture is, say leather closet.
Don't let me ask questions.
That's an allowance still yet to be done. That's outside of our.
That's not in the bond. Is that what you're
That's,
saying?
that's in the bond,
It's in the bond?
but it's not under construction GMP.
Okay, but the O'Loughlin project, that's not in that?
It's the same, it'd be managed the same way, so that'd be purchased by district.
The 245,242, that's, those were change orders?
Are you talking about on the GMP?
I'm talking about this, about Roosevelt. It says the total is 19, and then the PCCO executed, that's change orders? Okay, were those all approved by the board?
It was approved via part of the GMP in there.
No, I remember,
Is that above and beyond?
I don't know if
I remember.
What are you asking?
Well, the 81,000 at the high school, we approved, but I didn't know about the 245. And is that above and
That's a
beyond?
temporary classroom for a
For
law
O'Loughlin.
that was included in the GMP for Roosevelt.
The 245,000 is the temporary classroom?
Yes, for O'Loughlin.
No, I'm talking about, but this is under Roosevelt.
Yes, we had to do it in Roosevelt because that was the only one that was in at the point in time.
So we moved the one at Roosevelt over to O'Loughlin?
no,
Separate.
no,
Standalone?
yeah.
We
Okay.
had 2 classrooms.
So temporary, that 245,000 for temporary classroom?
For O'Loughlin. For 36 months.
Okay. So I'm confused why that's on the Roosevelt edition.
To get it under the contract, we don't have anything established for O'Loughlin just yet, so we have it there.
So that's the total cost for both of them? For how many years? Or
For getting 36 months, right? For 36 months. That's the total
36
cost
months for each? No?
So
For
when
total?
we-
Oh, well, hold. Okay,
So
let's answer Alan's question first. Do you have your question answered?
Well, I'm trying to, it's under Roosevelt, but it's for O'Loughlin, it's for both.
So we only had a contract for Roosevelt at the time, and so for us to add it to anything, we could either create a new contract for O'Loughlin, which seems premature since we weren't starting the actual building, or we could change order that through Roosevelt and provide those classrooms for O'Loughlin. The money for those classrooms was pulled out of the O'Loughlin budget and added to the Roosevelt one, but in that exact same amount. So we already had in the bond budget enough money to cover those classrooms. So the overall bond number did not change. Even though Roosevelt's went higher, it was pulled out of O'Loughlin at the same time.
So I'm just trying, so 36 months for 2 classrooms.
Correct.
And so it's a lease, obviously, we don't own them.
Correct.
And we have the one at Roosevelt's gone.
Yeah.
And the one is put in over here, or it's not there yet, or is that the one that's there now?
It's been there since last summer.
Okay, so it's been there, and we've been using it. Okay.
Okay.
Question for you, Ron.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
It's Megan's turn. Megan, did you get yours
I
answered?
was just thinking, like, sometimes you do things and then you go back and fix them later. Is this going to be one of those things where we look at that, or is it just, we know that's what it is and it's not going to be changed later? It's sitting, it's the financial, the billing for that item, it's just going to live here. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so moving into Roosevelt would be when?
As soon as you guys give us the bill.
Okay.
So, did they say 2 weeks? So
I would anticipate Thanksgiving-ish is when we'd be able to handle
Okay.
Uh,
the keys to the addition. Now, all the renovated areas, which school's already in there, those are completed. It's just the expansion.
Okay, so what's that look like for teachers moving into classrooms? Is that over Thanksgiving break? Can we get it done?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably something where we have, I guess traditionally, it's become tradition now, in all these folks, we have given staff a day to try to, a day or two, to get class moved, and so we give students some time off.
Ruth, teachers in a new classroom will not be a problem. They'll move fast.
The original bill was not be done until into December.
Okay.
Yeah.
Several Roosevelt feet, a lot of the Roosevelt feeders have moved a lot. And I've realized for them.
They'll be happy.
I have had
But it was
some,
what we needed to do to get the project done mostly.
okay. I had some concerns they didn't want it to cut in off their break time.
No,
either.
we'll take care of it.
And
Okay.
that's what I'd heard too, and that was concerned. So they thought it would have to come in during Christmas.
We will not take anybody's Thanksgiving break. That will be not.
Listen, if they want help, I will help. I'm not much help, but I will help.
I used to give a lot of those away. Why no
As much as I
concern?
can.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. How about,
I have one more question.
go ahead.
When we first started, you said our goal, you thought maybe about 30% would be local. That'd be about $7 million. Is that, are we close to that?
Yeah. On Roosevelt?
Yeah, no, about close to $6 million, I guess.
On Roosevelt?
Yes.
Yeah, and that has not changed since we entered into contract with them last year. So that has held true. And we got a slide upcoming too for Laughlin. I believe it's what, Daniel, 31% roughly? For a Laughlin, which is, I think, a little bit of an increase. Which I know we'll talk about it, but we have great participation.
Okay. Anybody else about Roosevelt? All right, gentlemen, onward to Hayes High.
Okay, I'll let Brett talk about Hayes High, where we're sitting on that. We got a couple photos for that one too.
Yep. So on the left, you can see that's area E and D, so the performing arts. As of right now, anybody that drives by, you're actually going to see where that yellow crane is now got yellow sheeting all the way down through there. So we've got that completed and starting to get tied in a little bit. We're looking at doing a roof basically about a week and a half from right now. That's what we'd like to in area D. There on the right is the main gymnasium. And actually, if you come by right now, we actually ended up pouring that about a week ago, along with area F, which is the secondary gym, so the Augs gym. And then we've also got what we call the 100 slab. So that's going back to your slab on grade for the rest of the building. That'll be on the exterior there to the right-hand side of that right page, or picture, sorry. So right there on the left, that's actually area D for the interior framing. We're running ahead of schedule in that area right now, so that's actually been very nice for us. And on the right, we've got our area G slab on grade, so that's also that main gym. So went off really well. We've got all our shot clocks in, all the fancy stuff, so it's actually looking pretty good. There again on the left is area E, so that's our structural steel going up. We just actually finished out detailing that whole area last Friday. So it's going very well. We just started on decking this morning, so hopefully getting a slab on deck for that next week. I think we're looking for around the 13th. As far as the picture on the right, that's area C, so that's going to be in that main corridor area when you come into the main entrance. So that from that picture side, it's basically sitting on top of where the cafeteria is, or sorry, the servery is. So looking out next to the learning stairs, they're right there on the left. So that way, that's what you'd be looking at as far as your football field coming off there. And that catwalk runs all the way around the whole front, or the back side, sorry. There's a general overview, so you can see there's a little bit more yellow on there. So that's our sheeting, our exterior sheeting going around the building. Right now, so you can see the green on the right-hand side, that's what we call area A. So that's probably our busiest area in the whole project. It's got your culinary arts, your science, I believe we've got some math in there. That whole area right now is sitting about 25% on brick. So we've actually started on our brick on our exterior. The roof was completed roughly 2 weeks ago. Area B, which will be right there next to it, is now fully roofed out. We actually started throwing drywall in there as of last Tuesday. So we started hanging. We just started taping and finishing today. We do have storefronts and glass coming in, so we'll have that roughly the end of the month. You should start seeing some windows in there. So thank you, guys.
Next slide, we got just a high-level schedule, general overview. You heard Brett talk about Area D, Area C. That's what those represent. We're still on schedule, still holding to having open for school. You're probably curious that close out at the very bottom. We start that very early as we get wings done. We start test and balance. We start training. We start closing those out so we can get things moved in. So you guys are ready for school 2025.
And are we on target with everything?
I'd say every day. One wouldn't say we're ahead, we're not behind. It's pretty much okay right now.
And you had said earlier that there's stages, and as soon as you get it enclosed, then you feel like we have no elements to. Are we getting close? Are we getting close to happy, and so we know where it's going to continue on?
Close to starting that on that area A, that west wing.
Okay.
We'll have windows and things starting to come up at the end of the month, 1st of October. And that's where we start reducing our risk.
All right.
The nature of it.
Okay.
That's why when we talk about the schedule and we're confident that we can hit the schedule, because we just Mother Nature out.
Right. Correct.
Start reducing risk.
So how far? So that area, but as time goes,
Each one's set up to tier through.
so okay.
So there'll just be a continuous work through, like I was saying, area B. So once we get a roof on in an area, we start gaining a lot of ground.
Okay.
In fact, softball fields, they should start that by the end of the month as well.
Yeah, I believe we're coming out the 16th.
So they start seeing some athletics going on. Okay, questions for us?
It's amazing how much you get done in such a short time.
We've been, today we've been pretty lucky when it comes to weather. I know the last month, Brett's talking a little bit with the rain, but we've been pretty lucky.
It's nice and cool for an August.
I still wonder about the wind out here, and sorry my boots are dirty, but we're walking around.
Are they even boots if they're not dirty?
Well, that's true.
Those are Western Kansas boots, not Kansas City boots. Yeah.
We had 60.
We have 60 held right now, we're at 22.
You're 60 built in and 22. So what is your profit percentage and your overhead percentage for this project?
I don't think I have that data broken out. It hasn't changed from.
It hasn't changed. Is it anywhere in our data?
No.
Chris, do you have that?
I didn't hear the question.
The profit percentage and the overhead
I mean,
percentage?
our fee hasn't changed or anything like that. That's not a signed contract.
So is that, do you have that somewhere or somehow we can get that?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's in our prime contract with you guys, so you should have that information. It's tiered based on the value of the project, so it depends on which one you're looking at.
Nobody worry, the math checks out on this one.
Good.
I got the calculator and I got the glasses, we're all right.
So 114.628. So our numbers of.
And that's all encompassing here. That's, so construction still that top line, design, other costs.
But it's the total. This is what's going to cost us to have ASI.
Hasn't changed since the last.
That, you're 81 change orders added on top of that, right?
81,000.
Yeah.
81,000.
And that's what was approved last time.
Yeah, board meeting, okay.
And that's the difference?
So the update on here from last time is that PCC01 came from the owner's contingency bucket at the bottom, which was at $1 million, and now is at 918,000 and moved up into our construction number. That's just that PCC
Point in time, we're doing all right there. It's, as we start reducing Mother Nature and things like that, we work through more details.
And that is not part of the bond. That's above and beyond.
That's in the bond.
That $1 million contingency plan is in the bond for the entire project.
The entire project of
All projects.
of Hayes High.
Hayes High.
Okay, thank you.
That's just Hayes High.
Just say something.
It's the $1 million. Yeah. Okay.
So do we have a contingency at Roosevelt?
Yes, we do. It was in the GP.
And what was in there? Did you get that?
They'll all have
Are you okay
contingency.
on that? Are we still, because we only.
Yeah, we're okay.
200.
Yeah, we're still in the same.
Was it $1 million too, or?
No, I'm not off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, Brett, and
Yes.
Dylan.
I might have changed my name. We could-
No. That's we're good.
This does give you an overview and snapshot as we try to not just manage our GMPs, but total bond dollars. Items in green are confirmed and locked in. Items in yellow, there's still allowances to be available. We showed, I think, something similar to this in the last meeting. But again, hasn't changed a whole lot there.
I guess I don't see Filton, the new Filton on here. I just unallocated, so.
Yeah, so haven't allocated, it hasn't been designed. I think they were waiting to see how Laughlin shook out, which the very next slide will be going to Laughlin.
Yes.
That's when we'll start that discussion with ULR and see what we're going to do there.
Do we have an idea how much we think it's going to cost? I mean, that's kind of going into the next topic with Laughlin is we're already putting money in here without knowing what we need for the rest of the bond. There's been no talk, no deciding what needs to be done on the other buildings so that we don't run out of money for those if we get into something.
I know ULR, the designer, has an idea there. It's probably more for them, that question for them. As we get our budgets after they design for the scope.
So they've given us something as far as what to
No,
expect.
I mean, like I said, we've talked about what, and this is what I said before, we're not adding any space, so we're not building any additions to either building.
But it's still part of the
What
bond.
would take place in both buildings would be what would they consider light renovations. Could be moving some walls for spaces, like carpet, paint.
Well, I
Biggest
think-
expense would probably be some bathrooms at Felton in 4 of the classrooms. That would probably be the biggest expense right now.
I get it, but I think we should have an idea of what our outstanding, how much money we need to finish those projects before we vote on the law.
Is that going to be discussed when we talk about O'Laughlin, or is that now?
It would be now. We're not going to probably talk about Felton and the other high school, well, high school more than that, but that's going to be a snapshot of the process or so we can talk about Laughlin, see how that came out.
You have any other questions on Roosevelt or Hayes High School?
Not on those two, no.
All right.
So O'Laughlin Elementary bid day was on July 31st. Prior to that, we did a lot of work with the community and trying to get input from some of your local contractors. So on 3/21/24, we got input on the latest design development drawings. That gave them an opportunity to look at it before it really hit the rest of the contractors. Common advantage there. And then on 6/26, we sent the bid advertisement out to Building Connected, Hayes Post, Drexel Plan Room, Builders Association Plan Room. Those are all typical ones that any contractor would go to look for work that's out to bid. 6/25/24, we had 100% bid documents posted on there. We broke it out into 39 different packages. For this size of project, I would say that that's a little bit on the high end, but we did the same thing for Hayes High School and for Roosevelt to try and give a little bit more of an advantage to your local contractors so that the contract value for it wasn't so high that it was unattainable for them. And I will say that the ones that we've worked with so far have really been awesome and kind of blown it out of the water on both projects. On 7/11/24, we had a pre-bid meeting. We had 16 contractors there. Most of your local contractors know that building better than about anybody, so most of them did not attend. They've been through there 100 times, so they know it pretty well. And then our team also made over 250 personal phone calls. We have an intern from Fort Hays State that probably made 60 in one day, I think. He locked himself in a room and just kept calling. So that was great. I think that made a big difference. So this is kind of a breakdown of who was invited all the way down to the bids we received. So 6,480. That's our best estimate at how many were invited. That's how many were included on Building Connected. But that doesn't necessarily include anybody that would have found it through Drexel or any of the other plan rooms. Out of that, 768 companies viewed it, opened it up, looked at the drawings, considered if they wanted to bid or not. And then 24% of those were confirmed bidding at 188. Out of that, 72% actually provided a bid on bid day. So that came out to 135 bids received on bid day. We had a couple trickle in afterwards, but that was before the deadline. Like I said before, 39 bid packages. That was 3.46 average number of bids per package, which is really good. We always shoot for 3, and to get that was great. We had some that only had 2, but we also had some that had 7 different bidders on it. So that's good news. That means that we were really driving the competitive edge and trying to get the best out of the market that we could. Like Brett was saying earlier, the local Hayes contractor participation was 31%, which is the highest that we've had thus far. So that was really great to see. We had a lot of contractors that we worked with on Roosevelt and Hayes High that I think might have been a little bit timid to work with us before, having never worked with us in the past. And they came into this project and were excited about it. So it's great to see that number going up. So looking at the breakdown here, the number at the top was our DD estimate on the left, and the number to the right is where it's sitting currently, construction-wise. So there's a delta there of about 170,000. We changed a couple of the numbers in the design and other cost column, but for the most part, that savings was out of the construction. So if you look at the very bottom, the 2 red numbers, that's the true delta between what was our last estimate update to you and what our current proposed GMP would be at.
Just about 172,000 less.
Yep.
We don't have this part, the OL stuff, is that something y'all can get to us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions? I mean, that's our update for the law.
Okay, and what we got is the design.
Yeah.
So that you're then going to go into the GMP. You'll have a discussion on that.
I think we could probably answer those now if you wanted to.
I have some questions about the clarifications on your, for instance, the asphalt pricing. You don't have a price on there. You just say that you took you don't have the oil price or the KDOT formula. How come that's not in there? What's that?
So it's based off of July 2024 pricing, and it's APAC, the local asphalt contractor. So
But what is that price?
we could add it in there if we need to, but it's not, we don't have it currently.
I mean, you can look it up now. I mean,
We're talking about where's our asphalt bid?
what's based on the formula of the July 24, do you have a price for that? I mean, that's not locked in?
We have a price for our asphalt contractor. If they were to
Okay.
put it in today, as the price of oil has been volatile for 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
They have always reserved the right to adjust it. That's why we provide a contingency, or we have a contingency for allowance for that. And that's what that clarification is.
And so what is that allowance? Because we don't have allowance, because if it goes up because we have a war or something, it could go out off the roof.
It's part of that contingency of it all.
And then, but we're responsible for it, right? Because you're off the hook. You don't have a price in there.
Correct.
So I think you need to have at least a price
If
of
the
that.
price of oil went from $2 to $5, we're going to adjust.
Right, but it could also go down.
Absolutely.
So
Which we do ask, but.
we should at least have that price in,
Roosevelt, there was no change.
from what you had in your, okay.
What we've seen in the past, that depending on how much asphalt, obviously, but it's not significant where I think the risk is not about, so we'll be better.
And that cost savings item is really more of a cost, or that clarification is really more of a cost savings item. Because if we ask the asphalt contractor, you have to have your price locked in for summer of 2026, whenever we put asphalt down, they're going to have to add an astronomical number to
They're
hold
taking
themselves. They're taking the risk.
versus us.
So
Would they even bid it? Would they even bid that far out?
They might not. They probably would tell us no, but if they did bid it, they would have to add a very large number on top of it, because then they're 100% at risk.
Yeah, I understand.
We try to manage that. I mean, that's what we do, is we try to manage, find the right time and find the right, we don't want to pour asphalt in the winter because the asphalt goes, we're going to find the right time to try to make that work. is that raise.
Okay, so the 10,000 for permits, that's your city permits, and does that change, or is that, why is it that locked in? Will that,
It's always just a little bit variable, and the permit for a water meter is kind of included in that too, which can be, it can be $800, it can be $2,000. We base that off of what we spent for Roosevelt and what that ended up being. So that's the best estimate on the little bit higher end. I would suspect it's probably going to be around 8,000 or 9,000, but we don't know yet.
so how does that
If you
work?
don't spend the 10,000,
If
that's
it comes in at 8,000 or 9,000, how
That's
does
not
that work?
ours. It goes to you.
The difference is
We don't have to come up with additional, it's only if it's over that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the 40,000 on winter protections, that seems a little low if we have a bad winter.
I would.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, we're able to kind of manage when we're going to do some things. Now, we're going to start off in January. That's a lot of earthwork. We can do a lot of earthwork then, but it doesn't make sense to pour concrete in the middle of winter. If we see 60-degree weather 2 weeks from now, we'll try to adjust our schedule, stack it, but we'll try to spend that dollars. We'll spend it wisely. There's a time to spend money and time to kind of watch the weather, so that's why we have that much.
So all these allowances mean that if it goes above that, then we're responsible for that. So explain to me the 100,000 for.
Some of these are lessons learned from Roosevelt.
Right.
So we wouldn't have to have the discussion. And again, if we don't spend it, it goes back to you. It's what we learned from Roosevelt doing these expansions.
So explain to me about the 100,000 for the masonry buyout.
Yeah. So we have a mason that we have not worked with yet. So we're holding that allowance until we can get them qualified, approved. They have to go through kind of our pre-qualification process to make sure that they're going to hold up to their end of the bargain if we issue them a contract. So what we're advising is to have that dollar amount there in case we need to go to the next lowest qualified bidder instead of using that.
So your mason will have a lot of allowances, or will have a lot of different options. Is that going to be changed, or is it all locked in as far as what the blocks
We
are
can
going to
get
be,
them to
the ceramic?
Yeah, we can get him to contract. We're not using that $100,000. That would go back to the owner individually paying. We're trying to do that to protect the contract. So I'm not coming back saying, our mason defaulted, can't use it. We're trying to use the most economical. Everything seems to be lining up with him. We just need to do some more homework to make sure that he can deliver as promised.
Okay. The next one is the 85,000 for the temporary classroom. I thought we just talked about that at Roosevelt. How is that? Why is that on allowance here?
So the amount that we held in the O'Laughlin budget was $325,000. It was basically that PCCO amount for Roosevelt, and then adding that 85,000 in there. We have the classrooms that are currently at O'Laughlin until the summer of 2025. So next summer is when the lease on those runs out. The 85
classrooms, you mean it's one building with 2 classrooms in it?
Correct. Yeah, it's 2 trailers that form 2 different classrooms.
So we're paying about $6,000 a month to rent those or lease those, something like that?
Not quite. The build up and tear down is the most expensive part of those classrooms. The ramp, the ADA ramp that goes up to it is fairly expensive. And then we also have to run water, sewer, and power to each one of them. So,
So
because
we
they have bathrooms.
purchased that for Roosevelt, and we also purchased it for O'Laughlin. So now what we purchased is gone at Roosevelt, right?
Correct. But I would, it
where
was
did that go?
necessary for us to be able to phase the project and not have to go for, 4 years, which would have been drastically more expensive than having temporary classrooms for a year and a half. So that 85,000 is to extend from summer of 2025, 1 more year until summer of 2026.
So again, on the question I asked earlier, what is you have your percent profit and your overhead figured out for this project? I usually do.
Yes.
It's in the contract.
So where is it in here?
It's in our prime contract, which is referenced in there.
So any changes with each project, or?
It all references back to the prime contract based on the total value of the project.
I'm kind of surprised you don't know exactly what that is. I mean, with the industry standards, about 3.5%. Maybe, you know,
So,
overhead,
high school's
7.
2.25.
Yeah.
High school's 2.25. And we don't know about Laughlin.
0.25, yeah.
What is it?
4.25.
4.25 for
I bet it's
profit
for a
and,
dollar amount, which I don't have that.
no, I don't, the percentage is
And
hard.
that's on that front contract.
Okay, and then your overhead. Do you have, like you guys in your trailer, is that an overhead or is that in your project costs?
That would be what we call general requirements, which is part of the general conditions, general works. That's not anything that we go to. We don't break that out.
You don't break that out? So what percentage is we under overhead?
We don't break that out because our competitors know exactly what all that is, so we don't break that out.
If you look at the prime contract, though, you'll see our percentages for insurances and permits and bonds, and all that information is in there. It has percentages for everything.
I have a question about the floor plan. I see that there is a collab classroom that you guys have. Is there only one in Laughlin? Like,
Yes.
I
as far
like
as-
zoomed in and I think that's what I see.
Are you looking at the new addition on the?
The collaboration space,
Yeah.
and it's on, sorry, I really gotta zoom in here. It's on the blue hallway next to the sped classroom. There's two.
There's, and then
Oh,
there's a
there's
little
two,
one
sorry.
next to the.
Large and, so, my first question about that is, how is that gonna be used? I, like, in a high school setting, I was a little nervous to leave my kids unaccompanied in two different spaces because they're high schoolers. I don't know if that's the case in K-5.
It's probably a better question for DLR then.
So it's kind of a new way, like Roosevelt has one for each grade level. The Laughlin will just have one just because of the limited space. We felt like it could be utilized more in the 4th and 5th grade hallways rather than the younger kids. We also, if we do choose, we haven't decided what grades will go where quite yet. Right now, we overflow into the hallways with our classroom aides, and so we were thinking that the paras or the aides would be in that setting with the groups of students that they're working with, rather than just in the middle of the hallways being interrupted on a regular basis.
So Laughlin's getting one or two?
One.
Here it says two.
One is a tiny little, I would not call it a collaboration space. It might be called a collaboration space on your.
It says small, yeah, it just says small.
But we don't have a place for occupational therapy. Laughlin is just extremely limited with space, and so it's labeled a collaboration space, but it's not.
But our map also shows a separate room for occupational therapy.
You should have an occupational therapy and a speech right next. I don't know what you're looking at.
OTPT and speech.
Can y'all bring that slide up?
And collab.
We don't
Somebody-
right now on our PowerPoint.
Oh, that's what we have it here. That's
Oh,
what we were
somebody,
given.
Yeah, it
somebody's
looks
gonna
like
put
DLR's
it in.
It's under the public content, a Laughlin bond scope.
I think we're skipping.
I can look at it. I can share.
I just,
I'll just look at it.
Okay, I have a totally different question while they're working on that. So on my money sheet, the Hayes High is on the financials. When I look in financials, it's 13,900,000. And then when I saw tonight, it's at 114,628. Are these not updated, or are those?
So,
This is the one from the financials early in our thing. And it shows, for example, 13,903,656 for Hayes High. And then I just saw theirs, and it's 114,628,65.
so the difference is the unallocated, or the contingency, because it wasn't part of the GMP.
Okay.
In the unallocated
So those are
ours.
contingency differences. Okay. Okay, then my other money question is, and it goes to Dr. Yarmer as well, is if I do my fuzzy math, Miss Gitz, it looks like we're close to about 7 million to finish out if we approve this old Laughlin as $14.5 million. Is that fair enough to say? Okay. And so then I read that the Hayes Middle School, which is the old Hayes High, to make it happy, we got $3.6 million, close to. And then there's unallocated $4.5 million. Okay. So I guess I have two questions. One, what's with the 4.5 unallocated?
So that's, hasn't been defined. It's been the HVAC upgrades, which was not in with our.
So some of that's already spent.
Yeah, the 3 points, the 3 point, whatever.
That's fine. That
was to do the HVAC project at Hayes High outside of the gym.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, anything, so there's nothing in here for Wilson Elementary when Wilson Elementary is vacated? No. The Wilson Elementary, right now.
There's no dollars for it.
There's no dollars in here to, okay.
So
That's
y'all
my,
are just going to move in and they do?
okay. So, all right. So I guess my next question then, so I guess if we say go ahead with O'Laughlin at $14.5 million, the only thing that we have not okayed is $3.6 million for the Hayes Middle School. Would be the only money that have we seen it?
That was the HVAC.
No, that's this money over here that I saw up there. It said, I thought it said Hayes Middle School. I wrote it down.
That's what you have not, the 4.5.
That's the unallocated.
Yeah, that's what you have not.
That, okay. Some of that I assume is going to be used for our current Felton Middle School too. And that's all we've got. Is that going to make it happen? Because that's Dr. Yarmer's question as well. And if it doesn't happen, you get to live in Kansas City. I got to live here.
But like I said, that is those light renovation.
I understand.
You have to understand, we have that Hayes Middle School, we have plenty of ample room, we have more rooms, and actually we have great classrooms at Hayes Middle. I mean, we're holding school there now, and it's great facilities. So
I get it.
what we're looking at is light renovation. We're looking at some flooring, we're looking at some paint, possible carpet in some areas. Like I said, the big expense for Felton will be 4 classrooms, of which bathrooms we have.
For kindergarten.
And so furniture-wise, middle school will go to the old Hayes High, the Wilson furniture, so we don't have a furniture expense then, or little. Okay. So I guess my question then is, that's doable?
As long as we have DOR, the scope, the entire team works on the scope to make that happen.
I guess that's what.
So there is. So, I understand that. So you can't give me a guarantee. I need DL&R.
DOR is a designer. We price it.
That's the one that can tell me if that's going to cover it.
That's what we're working with. Well,
Okay. So when will we have a number? I guess.
We don't have
first step was to get through O'Laughlin, get that one in the budget that we had. They are now going to start designing on both of those. So I don't want to speak to what their designs are.
Just so if I can add, the design is fairly limited, because if you listen to what I'm saying, it's light renovation. We could actually tomorrow move kids across the street at Wilson into Felton, and they could hold school. Other than 4 bathrooms, not in kindergarten classrooms. They wouldn't have new paint, they wouldn't have carpet. So if I went to you and said, hey, we're going to put $2.2 million into Hayes Middle, yeah, I think we can probably do the renovations for $2.2 million. That's quite a bit of light renovation.
I guess my concern is, like, the concession stand, we're figuring $800,000, which tennis courts were another $800,000. I feel like if that's what we're budgeting for those 2 projects, that the 4 point whatever million is going to be short on anything we do.
We're not building new structures.
I understand, but you don't know what you're going to get into.
Concrete.
as we discussed last time, the plumbing for the current Hayes High School was brought into question as far as how good it is. So we don't really know what we're going to do. If it's a coat of paint, fine. But I've talked to more teachers here lately, and people that say there's a lot to be done. And I think that we should have an idea of what all we plan on doing before we approve this. I guess, Mr. Viner, this doesn't have to be voted on until our next meeting. It needs to be done by September 27th, and we got a meeting the 23rd. I think that would give DLR some time to, come give us a presentation or talk about what needs to be done.
So quick question, with the sale of Lincoln, does that money have to go towards the bond?
Does not have to go towards the
Okay,
bond.
so if we sold that building, we could use that money for renovations if needed for this, is that
And that's how
correct?
we've been operating, that if we did have to.
Okay, same way with this building? Okay.
Or that money could be used to pay off the bond too, quicker
Correct.
too.
That's why I just wanted to make sure if it had to or.
At the very least, we have an estimate on how much it's going to cost to add in the plumbing for the bathrooms.
Got the estimators here.
Yeah, we haven't pressed that up yet. Yeah, we haven't pressed that up.
I would really like to see the estimation just for the bathrooms before I make a solid decision, because I think that could be, we don't know the plumbing. That's a really good point. That could be really expensive. It could be really cheap.
I don't think it's going to take 2.2.
You better knock on wood right now.
Okay.
So that's
Did we get
a
a-
good question. Mr. Wilson talked about it'd be a lot cheaper, but how many rooms are the light renovation at Laughlin? They're just getting paint and carpet. A large, 9, a big chunk. But DLR, we're paying DLR renovation and Apple's funds to do paint and carpet on a big chunk of square footage. And so that's something I'm looking at.
Are you talking about Laughlin?
What's that?
Are you talking about Laughlin?
Yes.
So we're also putting 2 expansions on Laughlin.
Right.
And then
How many square feet? Was it 20,000 square feet? 10,000?
6,260 and then 4,325.
10,000 square feet. And we have a design cost of 1.1 million compared to 1.7 million at Roosevelt. How much did we add on to Roosevelt?
How much, what did we have?
Square footage.
28,525.
Almost 3 times as much, but the design cost is about
Different program.
more than half.
A different scope, different program, that's probably what's built into that.
So it's something we should look at. And, we're paying for, and how much per square foot for renovation do we pay?
For which project?
For any part, Roosevelt or Laughlin, I'm assuming it's the same cost. Did we do renovation in the classrooms?
I mean, it changes considerably depending on the level of light renovation, medium renovation,
What's the
heavy
industry
renovation.
standard? What's the amount that usually, is it $6 a square foot, 10?
It's normally somewhere around 100,
100 square feet just to put paint carpet,
$100 per square foot.
$100 per square foot.
That's kind of an average. Like, you might move a wall here, you might be doing a
Right.
little bit of ceilings here. It's
But
hard without
Laughlin-
very specific
Now,
numbers.
Rockland's, we've got some new spaces there that's not very old and just been built. And
We
are
already
in
touched
shape
those.
now. And I'm assuming we're just doing paint and carpet possibly. Our maintenance can do that, or we can do that. I mean, those are things we should look at. If we're wanting to save money to be able to take care of all the other things, maybe we should,
I'd say the bulk of the Laughlin's cost of those expansions.
what's that?
The bulk of the cost of the Laughlin is the expansions and the drives. So
Can we get a breakdown? Can we get a breakdown of that? Like how much is the concrete work for the drive?
How much is
the
each addition?
We could give you our estimated amount for it, but we don't ask the subcontractors to break down if we're pricing concrete for here, concrete for that.
Okay, just flat work in general. I mean,
Don't you have a budget you look at, like gymnasium costing this amount?
Yep.
And at the high school? And this classroom section, how much is that going to cost you? I mean, I would assume you're going to have an idea what your budget's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, those are the estimates that we put together all the way along, and that's what we were comparing to and what we had up before.
That's what I would like to see. I'd like to see what, so I could break down what this section would cost,
Okay.
what the 2 classrooms are going to cost.
Okay, is there any more questions about
Yes.
money plans? Okay, go.
I did have a purpose for my collab question.
I do have the answer if you want it.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, there's not a space allocated for ELL. We have a very large population of ELL, and so one of those collab spaces is an ELL.
That was the purpose of my question, honestly, is that large collab space. It's the size of a classroom. I wanted to know if we were making it collaborative in space so that if we did need to use it as a classroom, we could.
So the OT is moving to that one because they need more space, and where the OT is, that's where the ELL room will be.
Okay,
And
so then,
it will function as an OT, orchestra, a motor lab, all things that other buildings have separate rooms for that we are using all as one.
okay, what about, so there's a large collab, a small collab, and a collab. What? I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
The
So
small
we
collab would be for like pull-out testing type work?
It'll have an office. It'll be our behavior for our student support specialists will be one office. That map is very old, what you're looking at. It's not.
Well, if I look at the other one, it's not as easy to read. I'm so
So
sorry.
there is only one collab space, and it
Okay.
is the hall, at the end of the long hallway. That is the only collaboration space we will have.
And it's the one that's about the same size as the OTPD /
Yep.
speech? Okay, and that one's going to be just a collab space?
Yep.
So are we also putting collaborative storage and whatnot in there just in
It can be
case?
because it's tornado shelter.
Got it.
So that whole separate wing is also doubling as tornado shelter and 3 classrooms
Okay,
with the collaboration space.
okay. And then,
So we cannot put storage in there or anything like that. It has to be an open flow.
so orchestra is no longer going to be on the gymnasium stage?
It could be. More than likely, it will be with the motor lab OT just because of timing. Because we have a lot of singers happening at the same time orchestra's happening.
Okay.
Again, Oahu's very limited in space, so we have to, everyone we've worked with has said it's unbelievable what we've done with the limited space at the capacity that we're at right now. And so I feel very positive with what we've come up with. I know the price maybe doesn't come across that way, but when you compare it to what the other buildings will have space-wise, we will not have space. So we're happy, we're staying 3 sections, so that's all right.
Okay.
Good.
And that's a concern, that we're not changing the size of the building like we did in Roosevelt. The price tag is almost as much.
I understand. Do we have any more questions for these gentlemen?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Brett and Dylan. Thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the school board, I think there's 2 options. Either A, we make a motion a second and we pass this, or I've heard several people comment they want more information, so that's a different motion, and we would, you're asking to table and be provided with blank, blank, and blank, and that would take a second, and that's a vote as well. Okay. And if you make a motion to table and somebody made a motion to pass it, you have to vote on the table before, even if you jump in order. So I will entertain motions.
I'll make the motion to approve it as is.
A second.
And, Mr. President,
Okay, so it's been properly moved and seconded on vote of the approval. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. President,
Yes.
to table the passing of the GMP for Laughlin until we can get some more information.
What are we looking for?
So I'd like to, if DLR would be available to come and give us a presentation, the next one about the rest of the scope and what they have planned. And a breakdown of the Laughlin for the different parts for new construction, for remodeling rooms, just more of a breakdown of how it's being spent.
Cost of gymnasium, dirt work?
Correct.
Okay. There's a motion to table and as well as a second. Any discussion on the motion first? Are you with us, Jess? Okay. So the motion to table to the next board meeting to get more information before we would vote on the O'Laughlin. make sure I say this all right. The guaranteed maximum price. All those in favor to table would be yes?
Yes.
Yes. Is that going to come up, Jess, or do you want a roll call? Okay, it's up. Okay, so all those opposed to tabling, vote no?
No.
Motion carries 5-2.
Motion carries to table till the next board meeting, providing that we have information from DLR and a breakout of the O'Laughlin construction. Passes. Next on the agenda is School Resource Officer update. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. I'm School Resource Officer Austin Spencer. I know there's a few board members. It's been almost exactly a year since I started. I started a little after last school year. I somehow actually attended the budget approval meeting last year. So I've attended 2 great ones now. I'm not sure if that's how they all go or not.
So you want to be first next time if you come? Okay, gotcha.
How about next time we move you to the beginning?
Okay.
Yeah, but I learned a lot, though. I learned a lot.
Okay.
So I just kind of wanted to give an update on what I've been doing in the schools. So first and foremost, the relationships I've built with admin, Principal Henderson, and the rest of the admin staff at the high school. We're communicating, collaborating constantly. They come in my office, I go to their office. It's pretty constant daily. I'm interacting with multiple administrators. Sometimes it's a quick question, sometimes there's real legal issues going on, but we are constantly working together. And then Principal Albers, I also work for those that don't know or don't know fully the scope of what my role is. My office is in the high school. I'm there majority of the time, but I go to the middle school as well. I try to go there at least once a week for lunch, just to be seen by as many students as I can. And I'll go there when I have time available throughout the week. I'll try to drop in at a random time. And then anytime Principal Albers or the other admin there call, I'll go. So like I said, I've built great relationships with the staff over there as well. Shauna, I feel like Shauna's always one that calls, but I think it's because Tom says, hey, call them, because they're always working together. Sometimes it's a quick question. We just figure it out over the phone. But a lot of times I get my car and I drive over to the middle school and we figure it out. So I've built great relationships with the admin. But more importantly, I think I've built pretty good relationships with the students. If you guys ever are at the high school where I'm primarily at, come during passing periods and see how many kids will come up to me. A lot of times it's just for a high five to say hi, but there are some that I truly have gotten to know. And I think that's an important part of this, is the building of a relationship between law enforcement and the younger generation. Quite a few have come to my office, or they'll catch me in the hall and say, hey, I need to talk to you about something, so we'll go down to my office, and they have a legit concern, something going on at home where they want advice on. I do quite a bit of like mentoring stuff where they're just looking for some trusted adult, but there is also cases where people have come to file police reports. So there is real legal action going on as well from me. Some of these students that I talk to regularly, I have gotten them involved in the legal system. They have been in legal trouble and they still trust me. They've been treated fairly enough that I still talk to them regularly. There's multiple that are that way, that will still say hi to me despite what has gone on in the past. And that's really what we're trying to do, is not get them in trouble and ruin their life. We want to...
You're not getting them in trouble. They got themselves in trouble, so...
I appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome, but I understand how that... You wouldn't be talking to them if they hadn't made the first oopski. Okay?
Correct, thank you. There's one story I wanted to tell. There was a younger student that, due to some unfortunate circumstances, I had to remove her from her home. She was placed into foster care. Luckily, we were able to get her in foster care here in Hayes, so she stayed in the district. Next time I saw her was just a few days later. She came up to me to tell me how much she hated me. I ruined her life. Well, now, that was quite a while ago, last school year. First time she saw me this school year, she ran from across the lunchroom to come up to me to say hi, ask how my summer went. So that's the kind of relationships that I'm trying to build with our students. And then kind of the last thing that there's two more things, sorry. I do classroom presentations as well. I reach out to the staff at both the schools I work at, have said if there's anything you think I could teach, let me know. One of the big ones I've taught is a sex laws class to freshmen, just so they know the various laws that are affecting them, age of consent and anything else relative to 14, 15-year-olds, to try to keep them out of making a major mistake. And then I have taught a drug and alcohol class, stuff I see here in Hayes and stuff for them to avoid. Those are the two big ones that I've taught so far. I've already had another teacher. She's teaching a new forensic class at Hayes High, like crime scene investigation. So she's asked me to come in later in the semester to help with that. So trying to get in the classroom, just another way for me to interact with students. And then the final thing, I'm there for security as well, so I'm walking the schools when I'm not busy, checking exterior doors, walking the parking lots, and then I work with Julie Zollinger as well, the district crisis consultant on overall district safety and security. I've been consulting and helping her with some. That's kind of been the first year of what I've been up to.
Well, Austin, I asked Mr. Wilson to put you on the agenda because I wanted an update on what you were dealing with, what the benefits of you were. I've heard nothing but positivity in the community. We see you at the football games, we see you at basketball, we see you everywhere, so I appreciate you being there. Looking forward to the future for the new high school next year, do you think that you are able to maintain the new addition, the build, everything yourself? Or do we need to look at something in the future to add another resource officer?
I think a second one would likely be needed. I don't know the square footage difference, but just I did a walkthrough end of summer of the new school and was really kind of blown. I didn't realize the scope or size of it until I did the walkthrough. It's huge. That would be tough to maintain alone, probably manageable, but then the middle school on top of that being right next door, I don't think there'd really be a good way to have one person running between the two schools. It's already pretty difficult to go across town. That's why I'm unfortunately not there that often, but I try to be. So yeah, I think a second one could definitely be beneficial.
And then I would like to say, I first want to apologize. I never thought about the kids' lives that you could be saving on a daily basis in the school district. So thank you very much for being there for them and taking those reports. Never even crossed my mind that you're dealing with those types of things. I want to commend Mr. Henderson too on the communication that he does with you being there, because everybody working together is what it's all about, and being there for the kids. So I appreciate it.
Officer Spencer, a couple years ago, this was a big push for me to make sure we had a resource officer, and I greatly appreciate it, and I sleep better at night knowing you're there. So I really appreciate that you're there, that we have a resource officer looking out for our youth and for the parents as well. Yes, she answered the needs question, because I had a hunch that when we go down the road 2 or 3 years, that one is probably not good. I guess my other question would be, are we safe? Do you feel that we're pretty safe? That's an open-ended question.
Yeah, that's pretty open-ended. Not to bring up tragedy, but I think in Georgia they would have said they were safe last week.
We got I-70 a mile away.
So I don't know. That's hard to answer.
We're better than we were? We're better than we were, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then to reiterate, Chris Ron, he is paid by the district, but his benefits are paid by the city.
So he's paid by the city. We have a contract, and we pay the city for the services.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. All right, 6.4 on our action discussion items, dispersal of district obsolete property. Mr. Park.
Yes, I was looking at this, and I know we're going to be having a lot more property probably come up and items, and looking back at previous reports that we get on this, we had where these items were located or what schools. Is that something that we could have added to in the future? Just to add that this item comes from, I mean, that's what we did before. This item comes from Roosevelt, this one came from Payside. Just so we have an idea where that would be easy. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
I do have a question. When we remove items out of the, and this is just because I don't really know, if we remove items out of the consent agenda, that's for discussion, right? If we just have a question about it, we don't.
We can get the questions answered if you want to ask the questions before and if you want to pull it, you have every right to pull it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I would entertain a motion to accept the disposal of district obsolete property.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to disposal of district obsolete property. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the conclusion of our school board meeting on September 9th. I'd entertain a motion to close.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? 7-0. Jess?
Not up yet.
Surely it's 4-3 at least.
Yes.
6-1.
6-1. We are adjourned.